Hello, Christown Chicks. How are you? Um, so this is a redo of March 21st. We did a lesson on training children and it didn't record because the internet was down. So I'm going to give an attempt to record it, uh, kind of going back to the Zoom pandemic days. I haven't done this in a long time, so uh, hope it goes well. So training children, something close to every mama's heart, right? I want to start by saying I am no expert. I'm not a child psychologist. I'm not anything. I'm just an older woman sharing with the younger women things that I've learned along the way. I have 6 children and number 12 grandchild on the way. I do love children. I love them more and more as I get older. I appreciate them more and more. And I love seeing the mamas at Bible study. So I hope this lesson is encouraging to you. So, there's a lot being said in the world about children, and God's word is the best resource on children. We have been studying Psalm 119 this year, and it's about the relationship between David as a son and God as his father. And I think there's so much application there, right? So when you think about David trying to learn from his father and obey his father and the struggles he has in obeying him. There's just all kinds of good words that tell us that is an active part of his life, trying to develop that relationship. And so we can look at it from that angle and learn a lot, have an empathy for our children for trying to learn. David says he's a stranger in the world. Think about our children. They're strangers. They get here, they don't know anything, and we have to help them along the way. So that journey is very similar. And if we flip that over, we are children of God and we can relate so much to God. If we know God is our Savior and we're in His Word and we're learning and growing from Him, we have the same struggles that David talks about and so puts in words so well, right? And so we can relate to that and we can understand the struggle as well. And the funny thing is, we never really arrive, right? We never reach that magic maturity that we'd all love to have. And so we're growing all along our life. And then, if we end up with children in our lives, then here we are trying to grow ourselves and teach the little ones behind us to come along. So there's just a lot relatable in Psalm 119. So next time you read through it, kind of think about it with that in mind and see if you don't glean some things. And so in the midst of growing ourselves, here we are trying to raise these children, and we're doing it in front of our children, right? And they know us really well, and they know what's important to us, and they know what our strengths are and where we fail, where we break down, where we're strong, what our strengths are, even better than we do. And so I think it's really, really important that we look to God, our Father, as an example as we parent. What is He like as a parent? And of course, He's a perfect Father. God is a perfect Father. And He's fair and He's just and He's kind and He's merciful. Oh my goodness, who could want a better Father? And so we are to model God as the Father. But we are human and we struggle with sin. And so we are not the perfect parent. We never will be the perfect parent. So we need to rely on what Jesus taught us about forgiveness, about asking for forgiveness when we mess up, about willing to be forgiving to others when they mess up, about being humble and not proud, to be teachable, right? So, in humility, seeking God in this task of raising children and leaning on Him strong in prayer and in knowing His word and studying. So, that's my main encouragement to all of us. So on being a mom, how does God view children? Well, look at Psalm 127, verses 3 through 5. Gives us a good impression of what God says about children. He says, "Behold, children are a heritage from the Lord. The fruit of the womb is a reward, like arrows in the hand of a warrior. So are the children of one's youth. Happy is the man who has his quiver full of them. They shall not be ashamed, but shall speak with their enemies in the gate." So it's really a positive thing, right? They're a gift, God says. And if we have children, we should be thankful for them. We should enjoy them. Um, and it's an opportunity to work alongside God in the shaping of this little human being, right? Um, and so it's a privilege. And currently, the world does not value children as God values children. Jesus said, he says, let the little children come unto me. They were important to him. And there's many places where he talks about we should be childlike in our faith, right? We should be accepting and trusting in him. And that's so he values children very much. But currently, what do people say about children? Well, they say they're an interruption to my life. They say, I'm stuck at home with the children. If a dad is caring for his children, he's babysitting. I'm sorry, that strikes me as a little wrong. Those are his children. He's not babysitting, he's raising children. It's a big, big difference, right? Um, Pregnancy is optional in our society. It's not an option in God's economy. God values life. He values the unborn. And nowadays, if an unwanted child comes along, somehow that affects. It's a healthcare issue for the mom. So we've taken on ourselves as humans a place that belongs to God, and that is choosing life. So I would encourage you just to model that value of children and not be afraid to say God values life. Moms often bemoan how hard it is to be home with the children. It's, they just can't wait to get through it, can't wait till it's over, can't wait for a break. Would you want to be a mom if you were a young person? Many young people are opting out of wanting to be married or to have children or a family. They just want their dogs and cats, and they don't want all the trouble, the expense, the time, and the energy it takes to raise a child. But you know what? As a mom, we're the ones that grow, right? That teaches you so much. So much. So what does God tell us about the children, and how should we feel about them? We should see them as a gift. Titus 2:3-5 tells us that we should love our children. And that word for love is to be fond of, right? We don't always like our kids. There's sometimes they can be really make you pull your hair out. But we should, in general, be fond of them, and they should know that. They should know we have a fondness for them. We're glad they're here, and we embrace that. We should always want the best for them. There are times, especially with a grown child, where they make decisions that we can't embrace, can't be part of, but we should always want the best for them. We should never write anybody off, right? Think about the prodigal son. In spite of all that the prodigal son had done, he had taken his inheritance, he'd squandered it, he was eating like an animal out of the food trough, and he comes back to his dad. And dad didn't say, I told you so, or anything like that. Dad welcomed him with open arms. And that's the way Christ is with us. We think we have it all together, but we don't. And God's always ready to welcome us back home after we mess up and sin. So parents should be the best cheerleaders for their kids. A caring parent is a gift in this world. If you have a mom or dad that loves you and cares about you, it's a foundation like none other. It just is. It's just such a privilege if you have a mom or dad who really cares about you and loves you. They're always aware of what you're doing, not every detail, especially as an adult, but they know about you, they care about you, they pray for you. They're always in your court, always. So we should see them as a blessing. Arrows in the hands of a warrior, it says in Psalm 127. That means they have a purpose, right? And purpose and a design, and that they're a resource. And God's design is that as parents, we care for those little ones. And when those little ones grow up, they turn around and care for the parents. And what have we done in this society? We take the little ones and the old ones and we put them away. We put them in some other kind of care because we don't want, I know there's exceptions. I'm not making a judgment call there, other than the fact that God has this purpose and this plan for families to be there for each other and to be part of the care for each other. The other thing we're responsible for as parents is to train them right from wrong. Deuteronomy 6 talks about training your child as you sit in your house, walk by the way, all the time you're training and teaching your children. And that's the kind of effort it takes. It takes lots of time and lots of energy. And we should support their bents. That means their direction, how they're wired, how they're gifted. Proverbs 22:6 says, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it." And so, think about that. Not what you necessarily want for your child. Not that you don't have goals and rules and boundaries and all that, but how has God gifted your child? Is he athletic? Do you support him in that? Is he maybe very artsy? Maybe he's great with words. Um, you know, Maybe she's very nurturing. Whatever the gift is, be part of helping direct and facilitate those bents. We're to discipline, not punish them. We'll talk more about that. And we're to love them, not spoil them. We'll talk more about that too. So, what are we to teach? Well, let's start with the little ones, okay? The main thing to teach is security, and to teach them that they are secure in this world. That builds trust, and that takes sober mindedness and self discipline on the part of a mom to make sure that her child feels secure, to make sure that meals are ready, to make sure that there's a regimen and that the child gets enough rest and is put down for naps and gets enough sleep at night. All those kinds of things contribute to the health and the well-being of a child, right? They don't know what they need. They don't know why they're crabby and grumpy. It's because they're hangry, they're hungry, and they're tired. So that's what we're responsible for when they're little. And lots of love and lots of holding. Um, you can't spoil a child by holding them. Just love them and just feed them and love them and feed them some more. And then, so you can teach a child to sleep. I recently met a young man who was convinced that it was time for his child to take a nap, to learn to take naps, and the child was 16 months old. I was like, man, you missed out on 16 months of having that good nap time. I needed the nap time. He said, you can't make your child sleep. I said, well, you can certainly make them lay down. And a lot of times, if the child gets used to that laying down, they will go to sleep. But you, mama, need your time too. You need time to recoup, to have a thought of your own, to rest, to put your feet up, take a snack or whatever. But it's perfectly okay for a child to put it down to bed, even if it doesn't want to. So, and that varies. The amount of sleep a child needs varies on its age. And you can do your child development research and find out what. Okay. Provide them with good stimulation, right? And in my view, the computer and the TV should not be part of that when they're little. And I know it gets harder when there's older kids in the house, right? But to park a kid in front of a TV or a screen as a habit, as a way of entertaining them and getting space is not healthy. It would be better to put them down for a nap than to park them in front of all that stuff. It's not good for their eyes. It's not good for their imagination. It's not good for their well-being. They get used to being entertained and can't come up with their own things to do. So great things for little ones are blocks, anything manipulative and safe. Be sure you look at the stuff on the box, and you don't get anything too small they could choke on. But blocks, they love boxes. If you got cardboard boxes, if you're an Amazon shopper, just give them the boxes and they'll be plenty happy. But there's all kinds of really great toys. Remember the Fisher Price Little People? That was one of our favorite things. So there's just all kinds of things where the child's using his hands, picking things up, using his imagination, and they can do that from very little. And I would encourage you to do that. How about and you can teach them fun music from the very beginning. There's tons of really great kids music, Christian music. You can read them Bible stories. There's great great little Bibles for the kids. And then one of the really important things too is to protect them. Protect them. World's a dangerous place, And so in my view, that's when corporal punishment might be necessary, as in a little pop in the bottom on the diaper or on the thigh of the leg, as they're getting mobile. The kid's reaching for something they shouldn't, something hot, something like electrical socket, or headed towards something that's dangerous. First, you teach them no, and if they don't understand no, then a little SWAT to a company that will teach them, and that keeps them safe. And then as they get a little older, and then they understand the word no, and you've realized that they do, and then they ignore you. That's another time you might use that. But if you do your job when they're little, then that shouldn't have to be part of. Then, as they're old enough to reason, you can talk them through it. But the corporal punishment thing is mostly to keep them safe and secure. Let's see. How about the joys and challenges of parenting? The joys are so obvious. Isn't it so fun to watch a little one? You're looking for that first smile, the first time they roll over, the first step, um, the first words. All those things are so fantastic. And as they get older, to see their bents develop and what they become good at and their accomplishments. And it is so fun to rejoice in that with our children and then to be their cheerleader again. And it also will stretch and grow you. We grow as people as we learn to um, communicate with a child and be there for them and you learn to be selfless, right? It's less about you and it's more about how am I going to, how am I going to take care of this? How am I going to teach this? How am I going to train this? How am I going to provide for this? All those things bring us out of ourself, which is a good thing. It teaches us to be strong and minded. Nothing worse than stirring up mama bear, right? So you learn to be strong and to protect, and you learn to love unconditionally because they are going to wear you out. They are going to make you tired, and you're going to learn that those are just temporary things, and you can love them unconditionally. And then there's a lot of challenges. If hopefully if you have a husband and a daddy for that child, then you can parent together. But that can be hard because you have maybe opposite um, upbringing, maybe opposite desires, opposite traits. Chances are you marry somebody quite different from yourself. That's kind of how we work, kind of how we're wired. So how do you parent with someone like that? And that and as the woman, we're to be submissive to our own husbands. So what does that look like? And how do we it doesn't just mean be a doormat or anything like that. It just means how are we going to work this out, and then giving him the last say, maybe if you don't agree. My own husband and I tend to be more fearful. I get worse as I get older. I hate that about myself. I'm fearful about things, and he's much more adventurous. And so, and from the time that's been that way from the beginning, he was always more willing to let the kids do things. We have a daughter who became a pilot at 16 through the Civil Air Patrol. I was like, no way. He's like, oh, have fun. I'm like, oh my gosh. I didn't stand a chance to fight that. But she's currently a pilot and loving it. So, and it's a good fit for her. So, sometimes you have things like that. So, um, and you need each other. Both sides of the equation are very, very important. And hopefully you and dad can learn to work that out together. And if dad isn't around, or if you have a separated family, it's really important to respect dad, no matter what the situation is, as much respect as you can garner to make, and is appropriate for the situation, to make respect of dad a priority. If you do disagree with dad, do it in private and talk and come as a united front to the child. It's worse to come divided, uh, and then the kids learn how to manipulate that. So united front is very important in raising children. One thing that you can do is work together on a mission statement, and even before that, spend some time with your husband. What are your plans for the kids? What are your goals? What would you like to see happen? What do you think about education? What do you think about college? What do you think about training? What do you think about vacations and fun time? All those things, right? So work on that together, and then come up with a mission statement as a family. We're a family who always has fun together. We're a family who always forgives, and we're a family who always is hospitable, has good manners, whatever that training is, whatever that desire is as a family. Keep that, have that in writing, have it as a purpose, and have it as a goal. So those things are really, really important. And I would just say as a parent too, to never protect kids from dad. And I'm not talking about abuse. I shouldn't even have to say that, but I do, because it's a crazy world and there is a lot of abuse in the world. But as far as when it comes down to making a decision, not to fight dad, have your say, try to work it through, but ultimately he's the leader of your home. So I did that myself and stood in the way of things that should have been done, because I didn't want to hurt. I didn't want to see the consequences maybe of being punished too long or having to go to a certain kind of school or whatever. But my husband was right. And so I made mistakes sometimes by not coming to a united front and then allowing him to lead our family. So be careful about that. So as much as you may learn from being a parent. We're talking about these challenges. You may also find things about yourself you didn't know, like how grumpy you can get, and how tired, and how cross, and how negative, and all these things come washing out because sometimes it's because we haven't taken care of ourselves physically, right? I need a nap, or I haven't slept in a couple days. I have a newborn and a toddler and a 3-year-old. We had 5 kids in 7 years, and then 1 10 later. So I know kind of both ends of single parent and a little tribe. So sometimes you're just exhausted trying to keep up with everything. So one of the main things is take care of your physical body. And if that means putting the kids down for a nap so you can have one, that's fine. If that means, hey, quiet time, everybody get a book and get on your bed. The kids are a little older, maybe they don't need like a nap, but quiet time's great. Everybody needs that, a little time to refresh. So take care of you, make sure you're eating, and paying attention to your own body, drinking enough water, all those things. And why, maybe figure out what is aggravating you, what is setting you off, why are you angry? A lot of times that's unmet expectations, right? Maybe you had unrealistic expectations about a situation, or about a child's capabilities, or about the outcome of something. Maybe you just need to turn that over to God, right? And just help pray through what is realistic. What can I really expect here? And why am I disappointed? And ask for forgiveness if you need to. And sometimes we get aggravated because we can't control somebody else, and it's so hard, right? And sometimes we're humiliated. Like, oh, that kid made me look really bad. And we might overreact because we're embarrassed. How about fear of missing out? You feel left out, you feel sorry for yourself. I have to stay home with these kids, and you go off to work, hubby, and you get awards and everybody loves you there. And I'm still in my pajamas at 10 o'clock, which you shouldn't be, but because you should be taking care of you too. But all those things, we feel like we're missing out because we're home with the kids. But no, we're in a very blessed place, a privileged place. So that's why it's important to have God's perspective in our mind about children. Sometimes maybe I'm frustrated and angry because I'm helicoptering and it's exhausting. We're not called to helicopter our children when they need room to make to learn. And sometimes we're so busy teach that they don't have time to absorb that. Have you ever had anybody try to teach you a skill and they have so many words you don't have time to put it into practice? Like I've had that happen to me in horseback riding. Sit sit up, put your box down, put your heels down. So much stuff that you can't even possibly process it. So work on one thing at a time. One thing at a time. Go slow. Let them soak it in. Let them try. Let them fail. So all those things are important. So sometimes, again, our expectations are bad. So are unrealistic. I wanted to read you this little poem. I think it's very special. It's called The Teacher. Lord, who am I to teach the way to little children day by day, so prone myself to go astray? I teach them knowledge, but I know how faint they flicker and how low the candle of my knowledge glow. The candles of my knowledge glow. I teach them power to will and do, but only now to learn anew my own great weakness through and through. I teach them love for all mankind and all God's creatures, but I find my love comes lagging far behind. Lord, if their guide, I still must be. Oh, let the little children see the teacher leaning hard on thee. That's by Leslie Pinckney Hill. It's from the 1800s. I thought that was very precious and very, just a very real prayer, right? Yeah, we mess up and we need our Savior and we need his word and we need his people and we need counsel and we need wisdom from older women. And sometimes we do need a break. And maybe you could trade some time with a friend or, hire a babysitter if you need to, a good one. If you got mom or grandma around, sister, let people help you. Let people give you a little break if you really need it. Okay. So let's have a plan. God's plan, of course, is that we train children as they grow. So we had the little ones. We talked about security. God tells us in Proverbs 22:5 that foolishness is bound up in a heart of a child. And you're going to see it sooner rather than later. And sometimes maybe the things a child does remind you of you. And sometimes they might remind you of your husband, but a lot of times those things are passed down. So you're going to see that foolishness in the heart of a child. And what we do is we teach them the truth from the beginning. Okay. And that in 2 Timothy 3:15, it says, and how from infancy, it's talking to the believers there in Titus, and how from infancy you have known the Holy Scriptures, which are able to make you wise for salvation through Jesus Christ. So the word is valuable no matter how young a child is. Have you ever seen the ABC verses? A, all we like sheep have gone astray. B, believe in the Lord Jesus Christ. C, you can teach them very simple things to memorize from the time they're very young, where the truth becomes part of who they are. So that's really important. Teaching them the truth, watching out for foolishness, and we don't have to be harsh. Like we said, we're going back to Father as an example. He's graceful, gracious, he's kind, he's patient, right? But we're not obliged to follow a child's foolishness. And in this world we are in, we are following foolishness. And that is not our job. Our job is to show the truth and to put in the boundaries to help that truth be acted out. So one of the fundamental things in that arena would be to teach a child respect. And that means when you say yes, you mean yes. And when you say no, you mean no. And if you don't know which you're going to say, then don't say either. Wait until you know. It's better um, to give a solid answer than to waffle, and oh yes, no, or to say no and then to a child and then they do it anyway, and so you virtually said yes just by letting something happen. Does that make sense? So it's really, really important that you teach respect when they're little, because they're going to need it their whole life. They're going to need it with their teachers. They're going to need it with all the authorities in their life, their teachers, their government, their city police, all those things, their pastors, right? Respect is a fundamental part of getting along in life with other people. And Proverbs 5:7 says, hear me now, my children, and do not depart from the words of my mouth. So we teach our kids to listen and to obey what we teach them. And then Proverbs 6:23 says, the commandment is a lamp and the law a light. Reproofs and instruction are a way of life. You show them that you obey, and then they obey, right? That's just part of life. That's the way it is. If we don't fight it all the time, then they'll see a good example in us. And I would really encourage you not to laugh at foolishness. Kids can be so funny. You see all those little reels on Facebook or whatever, and some kids being sassy and everybody's dying laughing. I would encourage you to laugh inside. And it doesn't mean you have to get angry, but not to respond to that. And especially, as they're young, not to laugh or encourage it in any way. So, and certainly not to respond to it. If a kid's throwing a fit to get what they want and not respecting that you've told them no, don't let that fit change your mind. Teach them to respect what you've told them. Teach them to respect the rules that you have. Proverbs 3:11 and 12 actually says, there is a generation that curses its father and does not bless its mother. And those are the children who are not respected. It's an important issue, ladies. It really is. So one of the ways that I always boil that down, because I think it's kind of a hard thing sometimes as a mom, you're like, well, how can I make the kid respect me? What does that look like? You must respect me. That doesn't feel right. Well, manners, girls, manner is the key, because manners you can hold up separately and say, these are the rules of our house. And see, these are the rules of our house, and you have to obey these rules. Oh, you broke the rule. I'm sorry. You have to be disciplined, or we have to, change course here, because discipline actually is just about changing course. How am I going to get the kid to change the course? I found this in Epoch Times, great little editorial from a grandpa. And he says, here's what I would teach kids in the manner of respect. He says, respect other people's opinions, even if you disagree with them. This especially includes your parents, too. Don't judge other people. That's God's job. Number 3, always be grateful for what others do for you or give you. They do not owe you anything. To show you are thankful is an important quality of a Christian. 4, be confident, not arrogant. A thin line separates them. It's a slippery slope. 5, don't try to be someone else. They are taken. You are the best you. Feel proud and good about that. 6, don't try to elevate yourself around others. If you are comfortable with yourself, are humble, compassionate, and a good listener to others, they will elevate you in their minds. And lastly, if you want to feel good, do good for others. For example, do something thoughtful for someone without expecting something in return. So I thought those were some wise words. Some other thoughts on manners. How to treat the opposite sex, how do boys treat girls, and how do girls treat boys. Boys should be trained to protect the girls, and also just appropriate behavior, modest behavior, chaste behavior, discreet behavior, in this world of abuse, a lot of sexual abuse in our society. Train them. What's good manners? No, somebody that can't do that. No, nobody should be touching you. It's kind of a different topic, but you can wrap it into manners when they're young, and it won't be quite as traumatic. You'll be able to talk about it without really having to teach them above what's above their understanding. How to eat with other people. Imagine that. We don't eat with our mouth open. We don't tip back in our chair. Where do we put our napkin? Which fork do I use? Those kinds of things. And if you say, oh, we don't ever have an opportunity to do that, make opportunity. Sunday night dinner, you should have a sit down dinner at least once a week. And that's not like a legalism or anything. They have just shown over and over how valuable that is. That's a time to teach how to eat properly without making somebody else sick. It's also a way to learn how to have conversation, how not to interrupt, how to let people have a turn, how to ask questions, how to look people in the eye. That's a great, great training ground, ladies. Make dinner time at the table a priority, some amount of time. Teach them how to introduce themselves and look in the eye, stick out your hand. What do you say? When someone asks you a question, how do you return a question? Teach them about admitting fault. How do you admit fault? Some kids have a harder trouble with that than the other. It's okay to be wrong. Kids don't like to be, some kids are really stiff-necked about that. They don't want to be wrong. So they need to be taught how to ask forgiveness, how to be humble, how to give forgiveness. Those are important things. This one, ladies, coming up next, I tell you, is one of the most important things you can teach your kids, and that's how to manage money. And that comes from the very beginning. Teach them how to handle money, teach them how to save money, how to spend money, how to earn money. Nobody else is going to teach your children that. And if nobody else does and you don't, when they hit life will be hard. My husband and I both were raised without that training. And I tell you, there was huge consequences. So teach the kids, teach them. God has a lot to say about money. Great programs out there on how to teach your kids. Teach them about marriage and relationships by example. Treat your husband with respect, and make it a big deal when dad comes home. Teach them to love their dad, teach them to respect their dad. Give affection to him, give him a hug, kiss, whatever. Let them see you be affectionate with each other and talk respectfully to each other and enjoy each other and smile at each other. Teach them how to serve others. They can start by simply serving their brother or sister. Let your sister sit there. It's her, I think she would really enjoy that. Or why don't you go do that for your sister so she didn't have to do that? She's not feeling very good. Teach them how to serve. And then as a family, one thing we loved to do when the kids were younger was when somebody else's family was sick, we'd put together a big meal and take it over there. And then people would do that for us. Great, easy, simple way to serve others. And then teach them what God says about family. Teach them the truth, ladies, what God says. One man, one woman, his design for marriage. So what about discipline? Okay, so we're working on these things, and the kids aren't always going to want to fall right in line and do all these wonderful things that we know are right and true. So I think just a few things here. Remember that discipline is not punishment. Discipline means to encourage somebody to like when we confess, that means changing direction. And so that's what we're wanting. That's the wrong way. Let's do this the right way. And how we're going to get you there, and how much you're going to make me work to make you get there, right? So first of all, is it rebellion or immaturity? Is the child just not capable? They spilled their milk. Yeah, little kids do that. they threw the milk. No, that's that definitely deserves a little discipline. So, what is the heart issue? You may not know the first time, and if you don't know, watch, wait it out. Be quick to hear and slow to speak as a parent. Pay attention. What's going on here? What are the root causes? Is there something I'm not seeing? Is there something I don't know? Um, be open to that. Even if you're home with them all the time, you miss things. I know we homeschooled and I missed things. Hard to believe. Uh, be realistic, right? Be in that sense, is it a reasonable expectation, right? Is it age appropriate? Is it something I can expect from a kid that age? So when you're disciplining, it's important to kind of look at the full thing and not overreact and not act too quickly. Proverbs 19:18 says, "Chasten your son while there is hope, and do not set your heart on his destruction." Proverbs 29:15 says, "The rod and rebuke give wisdom, but a child left to himself brings shame to his mother." I have, I know of a family, and they have, like, 7 or 8 kids. I love big families, but I promise you that they have never been told no in their whole life, the children, and it shows. And the mom can be in the middle of anything, and the children are totally out of control, and she doesn't even seem to notice. And that's not part of being that's not what our job as a mom is. And I know people who will not babysit for those children, uh, because they will get kicked upon, spit upon, hair pulled, anything goes. They have no respect for other people or other things. So that's not the kind of um, outcome that you are hoping for. And it takes work. It takes discipline to get them there. Um, Proverbs 12:15, "The way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but he who heeds counsel is wise." The way of a fool is right in his own eyes. Sometimes a kid's doing something and you think, man, oh, he doesn't mean anything by it, but is it good manners? This Easter, we go to a sweet little garden in the desert, and there's sculptures, and there was another family with little kids, and the kids would run up, and there was kind of a flat thing, and they would lean against it like they were hugging Jesus, and then they would lick him. I'm sorry, I don't care what your heart is saying. you know that's bad manners. That's bad manners. For one thing, they shot in front of other people who were already there. There was no boundaries taught. So even if the children didn't mean anything bad by it, it doesn't matter. That's foolish, and it's our job to teach and get that foolishness out. Okay, so here's a last little bit I have for you, and attached to the lesson, you will find this poem, "Children Learn What They Live." You want to print it out. Isn't it pretty? It's all colorful. Um, and some of you probably already heard this before, but I kind of wanted to talk through it because something was pointed out to me several years ago when I looked at it. And this is "Children Learn What They Live." And as we look at this, we're going to see it's kind of divided into 2 parts. One part is kind of the part where we would accuse or shame a child. And the second part is about training with grace. So I will point it out, but I want you to pay attention because it really, really makes a big difference in how you treat a child. We never want to shame a child. There's a difference between shame and guilt. When we treat a child with shame, we say, "Hey," maybe not in these exact words, but this is what we're trying. What comes across is, "You are a shameful person. You do bad things, and you will never be any better. That's who you are." That's not what God tells us, right? God tells us, "You look at me, I will change your heart," right? So God has patience with us and has hope for us and intent for us. Guilt, on the other hand, is a good thing. Guilt is one way that God reaches us, right? That's the one way He turns that hard heart into a soft, pliable heart. He teaches us to to be pliable, and to listen, and that's done through guilt. Like if I do something wrong, and I know it's wrong, then I repent and I turn, and that's what we want from our children. It's okay for them to feel guilty. "Oh, mom, I pinched my brother." Okay, that's wrong, isn't it? Okay, so let's make that right. How do we do that? So, the difference between shame and guilt. We don't bring it up over and over again. We don't remind them. We don't. call them names or tell them how stupid they are, all those kinds of things. And you guys are all great. I know that's not the way you parent, but it's important because a lot of people do. So maybe there's someone you could come alongside of and give them this lesson or try to show them how you would say things differently. So let's look at the shame part. Okay, if a child lives with criticism, he learns to condemn. Man, the power of our words, right? Um, Try this. Try saying to your child, I love watching you. I love watching you draw. I love watching you play. I love watching you comb your hair. I love watching how you play with your brother. Whatever it is, find something that you love about them. So you're not accusing them or criticizing them. You know, we are so full of words. Just listen to ourselves. We should be complimenting twice to every criticism. People don't, they will shut down and not even hear the criticism if all we do is criticize everything that they do. Um, and so if a child lives with that criticism, he learns to condemn and he will fault find and he will judge and he will be disapproving of himself and others. So it's not a good way to go, not to criticize all the time. I mean, you can give a critique, you can teach them how to do something better, but to criticize all the time, right? If a child lives with hostility, he learns to fight. If I'm always angry at my child, he's going to want to fight back. And it will make him resentful and unfriendly. He will also likely develop temper. Next, if a child lives with ridicule, he learns to be shy. If we make fun of everything a kid does or things that the kids do, he's going to lose confidence. So he's just going to retreat. I've seen kids do that. Why try? It's never right. And be really, really careful about joking to your children. Sometimes joking has an element of hurt to it, or if you think about sarcasm, just be careful that you're not hurting someone else with your sarcasm. It's better just to be direct, right? I don't like it when you do that. I think this is a better way, instead of making fun. Next, if a child lives with shame, he learns to feel guilty. And that's that constant state of not feeling good enough. That's what we were just talking about. When you don't feel good enough, then you can't do anything right. And that's not a good place for anybody to be. And chances are you may have some of that in yourself from the way you were raised or the messages you got. So spend some time thinking about that. Am I feeling shameful, and am I giving that feeling to my children? Am I passing that down? Okay, so the second half of this sweet poem, "Children Learn What They Live," is about being graceful. So if a child lives with tolerance, he learns to be patient. And I'm not talking about the kind of tolerance that says anything goes. I'm not talking about foolishness. I'm talking about allowing a child to be who he is, right? And if I'm tolerant with him, let's say I have a boy who's just full of energy. If I can appreciate that, I used to call my youngest son Tigger. I mean, he had more energy, and I, instead of, you know, trying to change that to, that was built in, right? I could tame it, I could train it, but I didn't want to knock it out. So, but if I'm tolerant with my child, he'll learn to be tolerant and patient with others. If a child lives with encouragement, he learns confidence. If I'm urging my child on, hey, that's great. Why don't you try that again? I think that's worth pursuing. You're doing great. Or piano lessons. Oh Lordy, piano or music lessons, it's just going to take some time. You're not going to be perfect the first time. Let's keep trying. Let's give it some time. Let's give it 6 months. Just whatever. Encourage. Um, if a child lives with praise, he learns to appreciate. And I'm not talking about flattery. I'm not talking about giving everybody a number one ribbon, like first place ribbon. That backfires. But honest praise for what work well done. You set the table really well. You have come a long way. You learned your left from your right. That is fantastic. If a child lives with honesty and fairness, he learns justice. If I'm honest and fair with my child, he will learn to be fair and honest with others. I think that one speaks for itself. If a child lives with security, he learns to have faith. If mom and dad are predictable, if life is predictable, and I tell them about God and that God is predictable and God is loving and kind, then he will believe me. So can he trust me? right? Am I giving him the security of a sound mind and being the same person in a consistent manner? Not that I don't blow it, not that I don't have hangry moments, right? But in a well-rounded way. When children live with approval, they learn to like themselves. When children live with friendship, they learn to find love in the world. Teach them to be a good friend. Teach them how to find good friends and how to be a good friend. Those are all great things. So that's children learn what they live. So think again. What are your goals for your family? What are your husband's goals? What are God's goals for my children? So those are really, really important things to be thinking through, to take time to pull aside and to think about each child. And it's hard if you've got young ones and there's a lot of them or whatever, but it can be done. And most of all, make good memories together. Laugh together, smile at them, not laugh at them, smile at them like, you are so cute. I love it when you do that. You play so well. Smile at them. Find out their love language and speak to them in that language. If it gifts, they like to have words, they like touch. Um, whatever it is that makes your child feel loved, figure it out. Be a student of your child. Read together. You just can't read enough together from the time they're little on. Reading as a family bears great dividends, whether it's a Bible or a classic or something y'all just enjoy together. Create a family culture. That means your own language, right? Inside jokes, that only your family, it makes there's a lot of connection there. There's a lot of belonging that goes on in those circumstances. And it kind of goes along with the mission statement that says, our family always. On Easter, we always, what? We always have this particular dish and we always go to church together and we always sing this song. What is it we do as a family? And our family never, family never says mean words. We are never unkind to each other in our family. And that doesn't mean we don't mess up, but then we have the benchmark. And when we mess up, we know we've messed up. So those are really important. So anyway, that was a long lesson, ladies. Um, Raising children is definitely a blessing. And being a mom is a blessing. And it's exhausting. It stretches us, but we lean on our Savior. And if you need an older woman in your life, let us know. We're here. All right. God bless.